Hi everyone, my name is Josh. I'm here today to present ILMN Incorporated as a buy. It closed today at just over $200, and I have set a price target of $245.87. So a little bit of background on ILMN. It was founded in 1998, shortly after they started the Human Genome Project. A little bit more information on that. So that was a collaboration of nearly 24 governments and some companies from the private sector getting together to map out the human genome, which is the 3 billion individual genes that make up each and every one of us. The company is, that project cost $2.7 billion. It took 13 years to complete. And ILMN was founded near the end of that. They are headquartered in San Diego, California, and sell all across the world. Some of the different areas that their technology is used in: medical research. It's becoming increasingly popular as different companies are able to pinpoint certain genetic predispositions that each of us have towards certain diseases, and it's helping doctors diagnose and treat many diseases and disorders. It's used in agriculture for breeding. If farmers are able to better breed their herds so that they're less susceptible to different diseases. And genealogy, people are looking to track their ancestry. I'm sure you've seen a lot of those websites advertised. And then lastly, criminal justice, so that now they're able to use different DNA samples to incriminate people in different crimes. So just a little bit to contextualize this company, when I first started looking at them, I was expecting to be an incredibly volatile company but they have a $28 billion market cap. They're very large. They are not tied to any certain product. They're not pending FDA regulation. This is a much more established term. A lot of that starts with management. So their CEO joined the company shortly after they were founded. Beforehand, he had founded a company called Molecular Dynamics. ILMN recruited him because they were also a life sciences company that he started from scratch and ended up selling for quite a bit of money. Shortly after, and just very recently, they created a position called Chief Medical Officer, Richard Klausner. He has a lot of experience, as you can see up there, but most notably as the director of the National Cancer Institute. What ILMN is moving towards right now is cancer diagnostics, where they're able to look at a certain tumor to see exactly what is going wrong with it. And this is where the direction of the company is looking to move forward, and that's why they brought in Klausner, for his expertise in that area. So in early 2013, Roche, which is one of ILMN's competitors, tried to acquire them. First it was friendly, but then it turned into a hostile bid. However, a lot of the institutional investors in ILMN stood behind the company and their management. That was one of the big reasons they decided not to sell, and Roche's bid was unsuccessful. And as you can see from early 2013, that looks like a pretty good decision. Part of the reason for that is fantastic opportunity that ILMN has been presented with. McKinsey is calling next generation genomics one of the 12 industries that will transform life, business, and the global economy. The industry has seen tremendous growth in the past several years, as you can see on there. As more and more researchers are starting to get into this field, costs are lowering, and they're able to use it for many different applications. Most of the growth has been seen in medical, but in other areas as well. I talked before about the cancer, the different types of diseases. So, for example, someone with lung cancer, we've known ever since chemotherapy was started that certain medicines work better for certain people than others, and even some cocktails, they call them combinations of those different medicines, are seen to have a different effectiveness, and it wasn't really known exactly why until they started realizing that different lung cancer tumors might have very different reactions to these, and it's mostly a genetics thing. So this is where Klausner is coming in, and ILMN is really moving towards this cancer treatment. So a little bit of the competitive landscape here. You can see it's dominated almost entirely by these 4 large firms. Thermo Fisher just acquired Life Technologies, and then they're a very large life sciences company, as is Roche. So some comparables here, things that make ILMN stand out from some of their competitors. You can see that the 4 in genetic sequencing have seen much more of the revenue growth than other comparable life science companies. But I want to point out that ILMN, their earnings per share growth has improved drastically as they've been able to really improve some of their margins and make their business more efficient internally. There's a lot of consolidation in genetic sequencing as some of the smaller companies that might have innovative technology don't have the economies of scale or the distribution channels to really make their technology catch on. So they're acquired by some of the larger firms that are able to use everything that they have to bring their product to market more quickly. And innovation is really what drives success in this industry, as the companies that are able to reduce costs are the ones that benefit the most. So as we see here, when sequencing was first started with the Human Genome Project, it was following what's called Moore's Law, which is that the costs that go into it fall in half every year. But as you can see, several years ago, the pace just increased dramatically. And this is when the growth in the industry really started to come to fruition. It no longer costs $100 million to have one genome sequence, so it's becoming much more applicable and practical for use. So how does Illumina stack out against their competitors? So as you saw there, in 2013, it was just under $10,000 to do one sequencing. And in January 2014, Illumina unveiled a product that could do it for about $1,000, which is a tremendous savings for the end users. So they had 60% market share at that point in time, already controlling the market, and now they're up to 80%. They're absolutely dominating because of that low cost. One of these machines can process 20,000 genomes a year. So yes, it costs $1 million, and yes, you have to order 10 of them. But if you have the scale, you can do 20,000 of these a year and really make up for the variable cost that go into it to pay off for that high initial fixed cost. But they're not just on the high end; they have price points all over the place to appeal to each niche within this industry. Some are as low as $50,000. They're hoping to use these in everyday doctors' offices as they can drive the cost down and make this something that is a much more ubiquitous practice. I'd want to read a quote from you from Daniel MacArthur. He's a geneticist at the Massachusetts General Hospital. In his words, "It's hard to see anything at the moment that comes even close to assailing their dominance. Almost every transformative advance in my field has come from using Illumina technology. It's an astonishing achievement." They are really the most successful company in terms of innovation. And part of the reason for that is the amount of their revenue that they invest into research and development. As you can see, it really blows away most of the other companies in life sciences. And I also believe it has a lot to do with the fact that they are a pure play genetics company. It's just them and Pacific Bio are the only two that focus purely on it. Their competitors, Roche and Thermo Fisher, have many more operations than just this. They're not able to dedicate all the resources and focus on it as Illumina is. And as you can see by the market share, it's really paying off for them. And also they're moving away from these non-institutional customers. So before we talked about that high price tag for one of the high Sec 10 pieces, but they're now moving away to a company called Veronata Health. So for expecting parents who want to see if their child has any diseases when they're to be born, they can go ahead and test for that. Right now, it's not a big industry just yet, but as they're reducing costs, it's expected to be $3 billion in 2025. And this is Illumina diversifying their markets away from institutions. So how has this paid off for them financially since they got started? Well, the revenues have doubled since 2010. Last year, they really improved their margins, especially the gross margins. You can see there is over 70%. When you have an unmatched product, you're able to really control the prices. And we saw the earnings per share growth really increase in 2014. Since then, they have very strong balance sheet. See there, very little debt, very low cost of borrowing. So even though what I was originally saw as a very risky company, it's not the case at all. So an FCFE evaluation that I used yielded a price target of 245.87. I chose a perpetual growth rate of 4%, which yes, that does exceed the greater economy growth rate, but one of the reasons I think justifies that is that this is an industry that is going to keep growing for a very long time. More and more applications are going to continue to come out, and I think it's very reasonable to argue that this industry will grow above the overall economy, especially if we were to use anything lower, we'd be assuming at 2020 that it would only be growing 3%. So some of the risks that this company faces, number one is technology risk. As I mentioned before, that is really what drives companies in this industry. So It is possible that another company could come out and replace them as the leader, which would make their products obsolescent, maybe relying on their recurring sales. But that might also squeeze margins. Like I said, they were able to have some of the strongest margins in the industry, and those might get squeezed if a competitor can have anything that prices remotely close to them. But as I would argue, as you can see, that if ILMN is at 1,000, everyone else is at 10,000, it's going to take quite some time before they're able to really make a dent into that. Regulatory risk for coming from the FDA, getting these drugs approved, isn't much of an issue for Illumina because diagnostics isn't a very large portion of their revenues just yet. That's more for actually the firms that Illumina is supplying with the machines that they create. So nothing that they are directly facing just yet, but something to look out for in a few years as diagnostics expand. Economic risk, yes, these machines are very expensive, so if there were to be a setback in the next couple of years, some of their customers might not be able to shell out $10 million to purchase some of these machines. But it's also especially important for the stock price. They're trading at 85 times their earnings, so any sort of disruption that you would see in the market is going to have amplified effects for it. I do think it's a great fit for the SMIF portfolio, though. With our healthcare stocks, we have over 5% of our portfolio currently in the ETF. Mutual funds aren't allowed to call themselves diversified if any single position is greater than 5%, so by that definition, we aren't diversified either. This hold is over 1/3 of our healthcare holdings, so yes, it is an ETF that contains many different companies, but I think we'd actually even reduce our portfolio correlation by moving out of it because Illumina is not moving in line with the market at all. It has a very low R squared, as you see there, just 1.22. So not only do I believe it has the opportunity to generate alpha for us, but we'd also be reducing our correlation at the same time. And in summary about why I think Illumina is so strong, they absolutely dominate what is going to be a growing industry. They're a technological leader with astonishing market share. They're very stable too. They have the wide technological moat around their company that's going to prevent other companies from getting into that niche and competing with them. But I think one of the things that really makes them stand out is that they have 70% recurring revenue. So even if the growth in this industry is not as strong as I predict going forward, they can still rely on very strong sales from existing customers already who have to reuse what are called consumable reagents every time they perform a sequencing. So each and every time they use one of those 20,000 per year, they'll be using one of the products. Any questions?
So on your